Another interesting thing I've noticed while lurking on social media is a bit of a split between climate scientists themselves. With one camp, people like the eminent James Hansen, one of the pioneers in this field, claiming that the rate of warming is speeding up and it's speeding up dramatically. The other folks, like Professor Michael Mann, equally as eminent, say that the existing models are generally accurate and things are going on according to plan, so to speak. That's a bad phrase. So yes, the planet is warming up rapidly, but the warming isn't wildly abnormal or different from our forecasts. What's your assessment?
Yeah, so on this, I think both of them have some good points. And I think there is actually just an honest scientific disagreement here that we just haven't quite got enough evidence to kind of like settle it. Generally, Michael Mann is correct that climate models have been remarkably accurate at the global level. If you go back to some of the IPCC reports from around the year 2000, they make some projections using climate models, which at that point were a bit more basic than now. But actually, they do a remarkably good job at projecting warming. We're roughly tracking what they said would happen by this point. If you get into kind of like regional details, it starts to get a bit more kind of because the models are not so good at that level. But globally, they're doing a good job. Equally, actually, what the models show is that on the emission trajectory that we're kind of following, the kind of like middle of the road one, we would actually expect in these climate models some acceleration of warming at the moment. And that's because we're gradually cutting out aerosols. So we're both emitting greenhouse gases that cause warming, but we're also emitting aerosols, which on the whole, they tend to reflect a bit of radiation coming into
So that's actually pollution, right?
yeah, basically air pollution reflects some of the energy coming into the planet. That's masked some amount of warming, something between like a
Okay,
third.
so let me get this straight. So actually, like tackling pollution makes the planet warmer. So it's in this case not such a desirable outcome.
Yeah, exactly. It's what James Hansen calls the Faustian bargain. That effectively, by cleaning up pollution, which is good because it means fewer people die. Like millions of people die from this air pollution every year. Um, by cleaning that up, you're actually unmasking some of that warming, which again, globally, that also does cause suffering and kill people. So it's kind of like this difficult trade-off. But in the long run, we know that we do need to stop emitting greenhouse gases because it gets worse, and every fraction of a degree is ever even worse. So it's kind of like we do have to cut these things out, but it does have an unfortunate effect of slightly accelerating warming. And on this question of whether it is accelerating, that Michael Mann is saying, well, we don't really have the evidence for it. Again, that's to do with what I mentioned earlier, to do with there being a certain amount of noise in the climate system. There's some variability, natural variability on top of this like linear or non-linear trend that we're forcing the system with. And that makes it actually kind of hard to tell. Like it looks like it's accelerating, but if you want to be really sure, if you're doing statistical tests, if you're trying to be kind of like scientific and empirical about it, it can be hard to be sure that that trend is real. You have to kind of ideally you wait 100 years and see what happens and go, yeah, that's what the case is. When you're actually in the middle of it, it can be statistically hard to be sure. So that's where some of this disagreement comes from. But basically, climate models are broadly right, but they also do expect some level of acceleration. The level of acceleration that Jim Hansen is projecting is not actually that different from what the IPCC class models are suggesting should be happening. So I think probably there probably is some acceleration going on, but it's kind of too early to be sure.
Theoretically, it is possible
Yeah,
that
yeah,
warming is accelerating, and we won't know until what, a couple of years from now, at least,
yeah.
which is a
If
little
you're
bit
being
scary.
if you're being completely scientifically objective, you'll wait a few decades and write a nice paper about it. But
Which we don't
we are
have.
actually humans
Yeah.
who are alive now. We would like to know. But yeah, I mean, it's understandable as well why people are hesitant about it. In the early 2000s, there was something that was called the kind of global warming hiatus or the global warming pause, where basically kind of like warming kind of plateaued or seemed to plateau for a while. And there was a lot of research about it. A lot of skeptics sort of took it up and said, well, it stopped, so we don't need to worry about things. And then there was a big warming jump because global warming tends to go in steps. It's kind of a bit of a staircase because of this natural variability on top of this long-term trend. And so that's made scientists like Michael Mann and many others hesitant. We were kind of a little bit burned by people overinterpreting that pause or the supposed pause in the early 2000s. So it's kind of like, well, maybe we should be a bit careful about overhyping some of the steps as well. The thing that's really important is that underlying long-term trend, which is only going up.
Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, follow and rate on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Marketing tutorials insist I have to hassle you about that. I hate doing it, but I have to, so I am doing it. Also, if you'd like to, please support me on Patreon. This is a one-person pod, so I do everything by my little old self. There's no team behind me. It's just nobody else. It's very sad and lonely, I know, but you can help by hopping on Patreon and finding the Smart Cookies podcast on there. And then last but certainly not least, I have to thank my existing patrons, Tovarishin Tovarishice. Without you, there would be no Smart Cookies podcast, which makes you actual producers of this show. So eternal thanks goes to the following legends: Bewildered Beauty, Davorin Paulica, Dale and Mia, Chert Kosar, Sasha Sodia, Richard, Amy Ons, Mattia Renchel, Florian Hawa, Peter Karba, Matija Zupancic, Dejan Žolnir, Darej, Rok Tržan, Sasha Vipotnik, Neven Cvijanović, Juš Premrov, Sirkezi, Goran Ivašić, Anže Sever, Ole, Marie Ferrara, Aljaš Mahar, Štrole, Aida Mancian, Miha Medved, Medinho, Goran, Gordan, Lorenzo, Jurečuk, Mila, Carmen, Veronica, and Taichi. The list is growing. It's super nice to see. I'm deeply touched. So thanks again, guys. Means a lot.